I have an opening reading, Letting Go of Certainty, by the Reverend Rebecca C. Beckett Coppola, with permission from the Soul Matters. Let go of the idea that you know what breathing should feel like. Just notice the breath as it moves in and out of the body. Let go of certainty. Be with the breath as it is. Allow openness. Allow curiosity. Notice the mind. Each thought that arises, allow openness. Don't judge your mind or your experience. Be loving in your curiosity about each thought. Let go of certainty. Let go of any idea about what you should be thinking, accepting your thoughts exactly as they are. Be with yourself as you are. Be curious about who you are. Love how you are in the world. Gently take a deep breath, maybe even a big sigh. Re-enter the present moment and the stream of your life. And to continue the centering, I'm going to ring the bowl, and during that time, feel free to center and listen to yourself until we don't hear the ringing.
For our multi-generational ministry story today, I'm going to read I Am Powerful by Susie Capozzi and illustrated by Courtney Lovett. Every Saturday, I go to the recreation center. My Nana takes me and my sister Marley. Nana teaches knitting and sewing there. Marley goes to art class. I go to dance class. We learn fun moves. We swing and stomp. We floss and whip. We even moonwalk. I feel powerful when I dance. We go to Nana's house after our classes. This week, Nana shares bad news. She says the rec center is going to close. She invites everyone to a meeting at her house. The next day, we meet up again. Nana says, "Together we are powerful." We will have a peaceful rally at the center on Saturday. We will show the city that the center is important. Marley and her friends make flyers and posters. Nana writes a speech. I listen and learn. How can I help? How can you show what the center means to you, Amari? She asks. Why, I love the center. I have an idea. My class can dance at the rally. We feel strong when we dance. Dancing makes us proud. Dancing gives us confidence. Nana says confidence is powerful. Nana and I call my dance teacher. He loves my idea. On Monday, we practice at Nana's house. I help plan the steps. Our dance shows off all we have learned. We make some mistakes, but we work hard. We check in with our teacher, and we saw him clapping for us. On Saturday, we meet outside the rec center. Nana starts the rally. People tell their rec center stories. They share how the center helps them. My class performs next. Everyone cheers. I cannot hold back my feelings. I step forward. I tell the crowd what the center means to me. I feel powerful. The rally is on the news and in the newspaper. I feel so proud. Did we do enough to save the center? A few days later, Nana shares great news. The center will stay open. We all high five. On Saturday, there is a party at the rec center, and everyone celebrates. I am powerful.
It's a privilege and an honor to lead today, but it was also a lot of work to prep. So what I'd like to do today is to appreciate that our monthly theme for June is freedom. And I'd like to explore that freedom today, the freedom to be you and me, which was a trend of the 70s. And I think it was at that emergence of when we were leaving the need to be compliant and like everyone else, and started to celebrate the joyful independence of being who we are, no matter what we are. And to do that, I remember my mom used to say, "Sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt me." And yet I found that names can hurt, and that judgment from others can influence our comfort in who we are or in suppressing who we are. And today I'll share the Riddle Scale. It was created by psychologist Dorothy Riddle. The scale was her PhD dissertation, and it was her means to consider people's responses to homosexuality, illustrating the spectrum of attitudes towards homosexuality. However, I believe it's a much more universal scale, one that reflects people's reaction to diversity and difference. I will first introduce the scale using Dr. Riddle's examples as it applies to homophobia. But then I'd like us to be able to contribute examples at each stage of the continuum along the way, considering how people might react to people who are different, how people might react to us, and what is it that can be empowering or what is it that's disempowering. Afterwards, the song that I've asked Bruce to play in our offertory reflection time is True Colors. And I'll repeat again why I chose True Colors before we have that song sung. Or it's going to be played. We can hear the words in our own mind. So when we look at the Dorothy Riddle scale, it's going from left to right. There's 4 negative responses. And then there are 4 positive responses. And it's a continuum. So we'll explore first repulsion. Dorothy Riddle says that with repulsion, LGBTQ plus people are considered sick, crazy, immoral, sinful. It justifies changing or eliminating them. If we move forward to pity, LGBTQ people are somehow born that way and need to be pitied. The goal is to help those poor individuals to be as normal as possible. Now the next 2, tolerance and acceptance, this is the neighborhood of microaggressions, and they're both negative responses still. When we're tolerated, exploring one's sexual orientation and gender identity is viewed as a phase of adolescent development that many people go through and that most people grow out of, realizing that heterosexuality is the only acceptable sexual orientation. Thus, LGBTQ plus people must be protected and treated as children. They should not be given positions of authority because they're still working through adolescent behaviors. And something that people struggle with at times is acceptance. It is on that negative side of the responses to difference. Acceptance acknowledges that it still implies that there's something to accept. It characterized by such statements as, well, you're not gay to me, you're just a person, or love sees no color. What you do in bed is your business. That's fine as long as you don't flaunt it. I never would have worn these shoes when I was a kid. Other people's judgment kept me from enjoying the fun, frolicky, colorful ways to express ourselves. And yet, some people would have accepted that I wore those sneakers. This attitude ignores the pain of invisibility. It stresses closet behavior and denies the social, legal realities, which is LGBT people's right to live. So then there are positive levels of attitude. We can begin with support. When LGBT people deserve legal and human rights, people should treat each other fairly, regardless of one's own comfort with the diversity of sexual orientation and gender identity expression. Acceptance, remember, has that power of, I accept you, but I could, if you do something different, not accept you. With support, we're offering that support regardless of our own feelings. We move forward to admiration. It acknowledges that being LGBTQ plus in our society takes strength. To be different takes strength. This also includes looking at oneself and working on one's own homophobic, biphobic, transphobic, and heterosexist attitudes. So the call for us to admire ourselves. Appreciation is next in the continuum. That we value the diversity of people and see LGBTQ people as a valid part of diversity. The attitude includes a willingness to combat homophobia, biphobia, transphobia in oneself and in others. To quickly deviate to nature, an old friend of my mother's, we went back to visit. She was in her 80s then. She says, oh, I was in Minneapolis in the early 40s. It was such an optimistic town. I said, well, what makes a town optimistic? She said, they planted these trees on every boulevard. They lined the streets with trees. If you remember, those were ash trees. But then emerald ash borer came in and devastated our urban forests. And as you look at the trees that were replacing them, they're not all the same tree anymore. We value and appreciate the diversity of having different trees together, and that diversity brings strength and keeps us from having a devastation again. So while we might walk in and see someone else wearing the same clothes as us and think, oh my gosh, how embarrassing, we're wearing the same clothes, diversity is what we can help celebrate and appreciate. And finally, there's that nurturance. LGBTQ people are indispensable in our society. This includes viewing them with genuine affection and acting as an advocate. So that's our spectrum of how we can be different. And yet, I want to go ahead and look at Amare. And yes, she was powerful. And I want to consider, where do you think Amare's community, where her grandmother, where her friends, where her dance teacher, what were their responses to Amare and her dancing and her being who she is? This is where we're going to open it up for discussion. Anyone have a sense of how Amare was being responded to? Where on the spectrum people's responses would be? We'll bring the microphone around. To go ahead to.
Definitely on the green side.
On the green side.
Mm-hmm. She got a lot of support.
She got
I
support.
think people admired her. And what's the next one? Appreciation?
Appreciation.
Yeah, I think they did. And I think there was a lot of nurturance in that story.
Yes, I agree with you that there was support for her considering how she could respond. There was admiration for her dance skills and her friends' dance skills, appreciation of what they did to help contribute to keeping the community center open.
I also think there was nurturing there, clapping
Nurturing.
for people, clapping for kids.
Yes. Now I want to take Amari out into the community. Let's think about a young black girl in Minnesota. What other responses might she experience from people out in the community? Can anyone imagine some of the other experiences? Jen, do you want to share?
I think there are people that might tolerate her behavior or accept her behavior within certain boundaries.
So lots of limits on how you behave that we will accept, what we'll tolerate. Oh, that hip hop music. Oh my gosh. I guess if they have to do it.
Yep.
Brian, behind you.
Maybe reverse discrimination.
Reverse discrimination, which would probably be somewhat of that acceptance type thing of, as long as you behave in certain ways, we'll support you. But if you behave in other ways, we're not going to support you. Bruce.
Bruce, I was reading a science fiction book, and as you're describing this, there's a community that they're writing about that was, let's say, totally lower income, lower education, and not a lot of high self-esteem and high value. And with this, there was a murder that took place, and the only person the police saw by that murder was this high school boy that was low mobility, very low self-esteem. Most people would realize was not capable of murder. He wasn't strong. But in this story, he was nicknamed, or the author called him the sin eater, because he had to take on all the sins in that community because he was repulsive to people. They pitied him. If he only was kind of out of the way, they would tolerate him. They didn't even get up to acceptance. He's the one that might be called the scapegoat. Well, in this book, they call him the sin eater because he had to accept and couldn't reject and basically had to hold on to and be a part of this blame. Mm-hmm. And so that was, when I saw those lines on there, I thought, that really fits what was in that book. I wonder how many places in the community we went into that.
In one way, I'm hearing the sin eater is taking on the jobs no one else wants to do, and yet at the same time, how much we need to be appreciative and sensitive to those people who are so sensitive that they take on other people's pains and that they experience, they appreciate other people's pain and live it with them. Polly's online. Let's see, get the tech going for Polly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Polly.
I see a lot of, I don't even want to call it pity. It's more false pity today. Those who would look at Amari and say, they probably don't have a father. They're probably poor. They're probably uneducated. They're left to go wild in the streets. All those preconceptions that I can find that some people disguise as pity, but it's an assumption and a very discriminatory assumption. That's it.
Sure, thank you. And I think when we look at those negative responses, in some ways, we don't want to invest. We're willing to let go of those people rather than come to get to know them and come to try to see what is it that we can support, and what is it that we admire in them being present in our community. I wanted to think about refugees, and that right now, there's a lot of people who respond to people who are refugees or immigrants to the United States with repulsion, the whole wanting to get rid of them. And I was looking at the Moose Jaw, the Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance, and the responses that they're doing for immigrant justice. How do we move from repulsion over into that nurturance? What can we do to help immigrants know that not everyone pities them? And the recent actions from Moose Jaw included resisting worker exploitation and inadequate protections. We have come to adopt one restaurant in Brooklyn Center, or Brooklyn Park, that's owned by Central American people and staffed by Central American people. And we find that making sure that we tip very well is a way that we can help say we admire and appreciate your work, and maybe a little extra $1 or $2 can help nurture your life. Just a simple way. Amplifying the stories of workers resisting unfair conditions. And I know several times Polly has put into Joys and Sorrows and amplified the stories of her neighbors who are missing. Having conversation with friends, writing and meeting with people in detention is another action that's been taken. Providing backpacks and related supplies to people in detention help nurture their situation where they're at. Volunteering as court observers, trying to bring justice and voice. Our vigils and rallies where we show up are ways that we can help say we admire, we appreciate you being present in our community. And provision and supporting congregations and providing sanctuary for immigrant families. We had a family that Lori helped lead our support of. And so there's ways that we can see that one person, an immigrant not born in the United States, will be experiencing anything from repulsion through nurturance by different people, all in the same moment and at the same time. Any more thoughts and conversation that was wanted to be done? Lori? Oh, we'll do Lori and then Bruce. Brian.
Our Sunday night book group is reading All Boys Aren't Blue, and I'm just finding this scale, I think, is going to be kind of insightful as he tells his story about living as a queer black man, where he's trying to deal with his blackness within the larger community as well as his queerness within the black community, where he's trying to behave to be accepted. And I think that it's really a useful framework to look at what people are living.
Great. And that intersectionality we didn't even get into, of how we have multiple identities. It'll be Brian and I'm having Jamie, thank you. One of those mind farts.
You have different immigrants from different countries. Different countries are different to the U.S. Some are allies and some are not. And when an immigrant comes in, it's just because the country that we don't like, if they come in from that country, doesn't mean that that guy is a good guy or a bad guy. It's an individual type thing that you'd have to look at with some of that stuff.
Yeah, what we're going to find is that if we look and find the true colors, it's much easier to move forward and support and nurture. Jamie.
In my many years serving immigrants, I got to do nurturance. And that was as wonderful for me as I hope it was for them. And it was a blessing that I got to do that. And it's It's a part of my job I miss.
Some people work, other people have a vocation. Well, I'm going to wrap us up for now. Oh, I'm so sorry, I missed that. Polly, please. Thank you.
I'll try and go quick. Just an observation that, many times this immigrant phobia and blatant racism has been so covert in our beautiful Minnesota, in disguise maybe as tolerance and pity. But with this Trump administration, not only is it demonstrated the repulsion, it is encouraged and rewarded on a scale I think that I know I haven't seen in my lifetime.
You're right. Right now, we do have people with more loud voice that are speaking on that red side. We're going to use handheld number 1 or 2.
When Kevin and I were working on today's service, and we were talking about this, and I said, I am repulsed by Trump. and I said, I don't think I could not be repulsed by him. So, I don't know that I would ever get to nurturing, with somebody like that. So whatever. But it's very interesting. Yeah, I'm repulsed by some things.
And repulsion is often an avoidance, and that's, I need to not listen to him. I will read what he has to say through NPR, through the newspaper, but that's my way of eliminating. We can do it in respectful, peaceful ways.
We mustn't forget that his grandfather was an immigrant.
As was 2 of his wives. But let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Do you think there's a lot of hypocrisy in there?
Do you think there's a lot of hypocrisy in there? Yes, there could be. And that's one of those tensions between where we move and the fact that people can be in different places all at once. My father-in-law probably was in the tolerance of gay people, but when he came to know his son and his son-in-law, he's had to really move, and he now nurtures. So sometimes growth happens.